So, hi, Erik. It's so lovely to have you here at Kuter. Thank you so much. I know you're a very, very busy guy. So thank you for making the time to talk to me and giving me a bit of your time today.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure, Leilani.
Yes. So I've read somewhere where you wrote, actually, that after 22 years, you still don't know what to wear. So I want to know, what are you wearing for Zoom interviews or Zoom meetings? Are you like me, who's wearing my pajama pants?
I'm actually properly dressed from the waist down today.
Okay.
I was out at a training session in gym this morning, so I had to dress properly. So it's jeans and a long sleeve t-shirt and a puffy jacket for today.
Okay, now cool. Because when I saw your post on Facebook, I just laughed because you know what, you actually wrote something important about, is it really important? Is it really important how you look? That was your closing question. And it made me think, is it important?
Well, I think of, that role I play. One of the jobs that I do is as a keynote speaker. And, so surely the message is the most important thing and not necessarily what the person's wearing. Within reason, I suppose, because you do, I suppose, want the audience to identify with you. So you don't want to overdress, you don't want to underdress, but I think more importantly is just to dress however you feel comfortable. And I asked that because, it was one of my adventure talks and I was wearing trekking pants and a woolen top.
Yeah.
Pretty much what I would wear on mountains. But then also, when I work internationally, Nigeria for one, it's suits and ties all the way because that is absolutely what the folks there expect.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, I just laughed that when I saw it because it is something to think about. So then I want to know, I remember when I met you earlier this year in March, when we did that lovely walk, you mentioned to me in Afrikaans, jy is eintlik maar net 'n L oor Onnie. Jy weet, en so ek wil baie graag by jou hoor, wat het jou laat besluit om jou karier te verander en wat doen jy nou alles?
Well, so I call myself a behavioral economic strategist. And what I have been doing for over 20 years is help companies understand behavior, employee behavior, customer behavior, and particularly doing a lot of work in helping companies create what's the word? A dedicated or a focused culture that allows them to live their brand, engage their employees, and also wow their customers. And that's kind of my day job. And my part of that is I do a lot of keynote speaking, using my behavioral insights and my adventure experience to share information, to share knowledge, to share stories, because my other job is an adventurer and expedition leader. And I've been doing that for about 25 years as well. And so we take people to climb some of the highest mountains on the planet. We walk across the empty quarter in the Middle East. We ride our mountain bikes across Tibet. And come up with a couple of other crazy challenges in between as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like I said, I remember when I met you, I just looked at you and I thought, okay, firstly, I remember I thought to myself, this guy looks so familiar. I've seen him somewhere. En daai ek het jou gesê, toe sê jy seker maar battle of the sports. Toe sit ek die twee mos by mekaar. Want as ek jou sien, dan dink ek onmiddellik aan dit. En as ek jou sien, I see fitness, I see dedication, I see determination. Adventurous, jy weet, jy's vir nogal 'n bietjie op 'n tipe van 'n ander level as dit kom by sport, jy weet. En ons het gepraat oor, jy weet, hoe mense nie altyd net die normale ding wil doen nie. And nothing wrong with people doing the comets, nothing wrong with people challenging themselves to do to oceans and August and all those amazing things. But there comes a point in your life where you think, okay, I've done all these things, especially if you really like an adventure. Then there's you. Jy weet, jy's my half die norm. Dit is mens wil uitreik om, nee, maar ek's ernstig, dit is my baie inspirerend. Ek vind dit verskriklik motiverend om na jou goeders te kyk. Want daar's vir my in jou attitude net 'n nou, weet, you can do this if you really want to. So I love that about you.
Yeah, my dikwels, you can do this if you don't really think it through either.
Exactly. I always say, don't overthink it.
En ek dink telke male kom mense op 'n punt waar jy weet ek droom met die adventures en konsepte op soos Battle of the Sports verlede jaar 800 km in 4 laps van 200 k's.
Ja.
En jy weet, so 3/4 pad deur lap 1 het ek begin wonder, yes, maar dalk was dit nie so 'n great idea. And so I think often, you know, I come up with the concepts and I go and do them, and then it's like halfway through I'm going like, no. Maar die punt is, you know, I'm passionate about potential and my potential and other people's potential. And so dis hoekom dit vir my dikwels gaan beyond a comrades of beyond the 2 oceans of it's what gemaak is for the masses. You know, I want to go and find something that just pushes the envelope a little bit further in terms of how far I can push my body, how far I can push my mental state. And yeah, you know, it's led me to a couple of really interesting and exciting places.
Ja, nee, as ek na jou foto's kyk, yes, some of those photos and the places you've been to, and dit is remarkable. This is regtig waar remarkable how beautiful this whole world is. But talking about the battle of the sports, because this was initially our first contact, our first jy weet, ding wat ons amper in common gehad het, wat ek het jou op TV gesien en ons het ontmoet en alles. And I remember you told me something about how impressed you were with some of these teams, because this is not what they normally do. And how you were really, really impressed with these guys, you know, about the determination and what they did and everything. So can you please highlight for me which of these sports were really standing out to you and why?
So, I mean, maybe just to recap for the listeners is Battle of the Sports saw me walk 800 kilometers, 4 laps of 200 Ks in the Northern Cape, unsupported, unassisted. And I was joined on each lap by South African sporting heroes. So it was Team Rugby, Team Comrades or Team Road Running, Team Soccer, and Team Cricket. And, you know, each team had champions and World Cup winners and World Cup participants, etc., ex-international players on them. And I think that, you know, each team had their own unique little bit that really struck me. So to single out just one team is probably a little bit crazy, but you know, from a pure, we've got a win now. That was team running, and you know, they literally, I think there was a massive communication gap between me and them as we started, because I was talking about kilometers per hour, and they were talking minutes per kilometer.
Very different story.
You know, I mean, it's not so much a running thing. You know, you're towing a cart that weighs about 250 kilograms.
Yes.
And, you know, team running, we're still talking, you know, like 8-9 minutes per kilometer. Whereas I was talking, you know, it's about 6 to 7 kilometers per hour. And, and there's a subtle difference.
Yeah,
so when they drove over me with the cart, slipping some discs in my spine, I was kind of just hanging on by the skin of my teeth and pretty much on the rivet. But 2 teams after, you know, beyond that really stood out was Team Rugby. John Smith, okay. Tanyani Shamangi, and Scott Brits.
Yes,
you know,
this is what I remember.
Me on a salt pan. Say again?
Nee, ekskuus, ek ken in hierdie geval jammer daaroor. That this is what I remember that you were telling me about. So please continue, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here I am on 200 Ks on a salt pan with 3 hookers.
You had to try that in there.
Yeah, I mean, that was the joke from the start, and it wasn't even mine. I think it was John Smith's.
That is very funny, actually.
Yeah, but, you know, these guys are all ex-players. Scott Brits played in the Rugby World Cup the year before, but they came in like, John sent me a photograph of his scale a couple of weeks before. He was below 120 kilograms, and he said to me, guys, we're peaking. But they had blisters. They got horribly smashed just because they're carrying so much extra weight. Their shoes were tight fitting, you know, and Shimmy had blood blister on top of a blood blister. The medics had their time, you know, cut out working with them. So what really impressed me was just their deursettingsvermoë, and that there was just no way that these guys were going to give up, irrespective of what happened. You know, they were the first team out there. No one really knew what to expect. No one had seen anything on TV. And so it was their determination and guts and to just push through, and definitely, you know, quitting was never an option there. You know, we kind of had this unwritten rule that we would never talk about quitting. You know, we could think it, and I think they were probably thinking it every 5 minutes, but you never verbalize it, because the minute one of the four of us would have verbalized that, someone else would have agreed, and now you've got half the team, 50%, going, yeah, this is a terrible idea. Let's just pack it in. And then team cricket, which were the last team to go, with Lawrence Klusner, Makhaya Ntini, and Mondi Zondeki, really impressed me. They set the fastest time to 50 Ks. We were the fastest team to 100 Ks, ahead of team running. Right. And what really impressed me was just their process orientation to this massive task of walking 200 Ks. And that it was simply just, we're not going to push ourselves too hard. We're not going to stretch ourselves too much. We're not going to put anyone in complete and utter distress. But we're going to keep our eye on the run rate and just keep moving, keep the kilometers ticking by. And that was the strategy. And they ended up being the second fastest team behind team running.
That's amazing.
And, you know, so two very different approaches, but two very powerful lessons, I think that we can take from each of those teams. And one is just to never give up. And the other one is, you know, to trust the process and just, you know, don't fall too far behind, but don't put too much stress on yourself or the team in the early stages.
Yeah, I really like that, especially being a sports person myself, especially that quitting thing, because the moment you start saying it, you're starting to believe it. And then it becomes a discussion point. And then you actually can't go back, you know, you can't not say it. Then it becomes a topic. So I really love that. So for me personally, I'm taking that from that is to not even go to the word, because you do think it. I mean, we all think it. It's normal to think it. Because ek onthou jy het vir so serie gehad at one stage. You wanted to cry, but quitting was just not an option.
I mean, it's snaaks het gebeur, jy weet, en dat om een of ander rede het nie een van die atlete gedink ek suffer ook nie.
Ja, jy kan nie suffer nie.
Which is crazy, because I was suffering just as much as everybody else. You know, and met die soccer team, dit was lap 3 vir my. Daar was 'n stuk tussen 70 en 80 Ks op elkeen van die laps where I just had a complete meltdown quietly within myself. And on lap 3 with the soccer team, one of the camera crew were with us, as they were most of the time. And the one guy stuck a camera in my face. He said to me, "Erik, so how are you feeling right now?"
Wrong timing.
And geez, I let rip, because at that point, the bridges of my feet felt like they were going to collapse. It was 30 odd degrees. It was just terrible. And I just really let rip, because there was just so much stuff that you know, I'm dealing with internally, because I don't want to get the other guys in on that. I was tired. My feet were sore. Never got any major blisters though. I got one little blister over the entire 800 Ks, but it was just, I just unloaded. And I remember Matthew Booth was towing the cart with me at the time, and he was kind of trying to move as far away from me as possible while I was unloading.
So
you know what? I unloaded to camera. That footage has never surfaced, thank goodness. Maybe it will one day. But after I'd unloaded, I actually felt a lot lighter. I was like, yeah, okay, and now I can carry on again. So, you know, I think that's important as well, is to accept our own vulnerability and to be vulnerable, but to find constructive ways to just unload and refresh and start again.
Ek is so bly jy het nou eintlik die punt genoem van how important it is to actually just offload, you know, talk. Because this is why I'm here today with you. It's because you've been through an ordeal 18 months ago, and at Yellow for Survivors, we encourage people to talk, because you know what, it's so powerful and you do feel better. As humans, we need to talk. We cannot live with this thing in us. So it's very important that you've just mentioned it. I mean, I know it's because of the battle of the sports, but this is the reason why I'm also invited you for today, is because of your journey that you've been through the last 18 months. Can you please tell us about that? Because I really feel very, jy weet, ek voel baie hartseer vir jou dat jy daar deur is. Now, when we also met in March, you felt comfortable to talk to me about it because of the work I do. So this is why it's really, I'm so glad we're having this interview, and I'm so glad you've got justice. But please tell the listeners what it is about that I'm talking about.
Well, so, where to even start? Before I actually tell the story, you know, on Battle of the Sports, and having told you what I just did, around, you know, not showing outwardly that it was tough on me too, and that I was suffering, is I think as men, we're kind of told or brought up to be strong, to not show emotion, to you know, put on that whole facade. And at one point in Battle of the Sports, our head of marketing for the project, Michelle, said to me off camera and during a break, she said, "Listen, Erik, could you just be a little bit more vulnerable?" I said, what do you mean? She says, "When we see your face on camera, we can't actually tell if you're suffering or not." And I guess that's just part of the fact that I don't have a very expressive face. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say to that now.
But, you know, when I go into that kind of adventure mode, it really is just around the process and getting through it. And I've never looked at myself in that space, but I guess I do withhold a lot of emotion. And, you know, it kind of obviously just flows through in life as well, and how we brought up as men. And so about 18, 19 months ago, I was in a relationship, and it wasn't going too well. She was under a lot of financial stress. She was living with me, and it just got to a point where I was just no longer in a position to continue to pay her debts. I was trying to rescue her business as well, at the cost of my own 2 businesses that I ran. And it got to the point where, you know, we needed to have a serious talk about the relationship. And I was out Friday morning, and she kept sending me messages that I've got to pay a debt of hers. And I said to her, I can't anymore. She then sent me photographs of, you know, one of my pastimes and hobbies that was a job for a while is photography. So she sent me a photograph of, you know, several 100,000 rands worth of camera gear. She said, "Oh, don't worry, I can sell this." I said, "Well, it's not yours to sell." But long story short, I get home around lunchtime, where we had offices, the whole number, and check my email, and I go to the bedroom because I just don't really feel like, I hate conflict. That's just me. Comes into the bedroom and says, "Well, I've got to pay this now." And I said, "Well, I'm not paying it. I can't. I'm not prepared to. And we need to have a serious talk about a relationship." And I think it was those last couple of words that kind of just set off a Madoopy explosion.
A bietjie vir 'n triggertjie.
Massive trigger. So she grabbed my Kindle out of my hand, threw it across the room, and I was gobsmacked. You know, violence isn't in my nature. It's not something I've ever seen or been experienced to. Threw my Kindle across the room, and I kind of was a little bit shell-shocked. She walks out the bedroom, down the passage, across the courtyard to the office. And now I'm following her because I'm just really curious, I suppose, like what's possibly going to go, well, you know, what's going to happen next. And she took her arms and just cleared everything off my desk in my office, and then turned the desk over, so that, you know, computers, everything are going flying, hard drives, you name it. She then walks up to me, and I'm still completely gobsmacked by this. And she rips my glasses off my face, tears the ears off them, bends them in half, throws them on the ground. She says to me, "Now I'm going to crash your car." I'm still kind of not really realizing what's going on, but I get to my car keys before she does. So I put them in my pocket. She continues out to the garage, and in front of my car is a wall of drawers and shelves. And she opens a drawer and takes out a 5-pound hammer. And I think she's about to hit my car, damage the car. So I take my phone out and I start recording this. But then she comes at me with the hammer. swinging the hammer at me, and I start backing away. We walk around the car. She's still sort of like chasing me back into the house, and this carried on for like probably 7 or 8 minutes. But at some point, we ended up back in the bedroom where she pushed me onto the bed. She climbed on top of me, and she was still beating me with a hammer until she eventually hit me just above the left eye. So of course there was, now there's blood and everything everywhere. At which point she stopped. And I think the visual cue of, there's blood and so on probably just got her out of whatever state she was in. I haven't got glasses on, I can barely see. So I walk out the house going to try and find help from a neighbor or something. And then get back home, couldn't find the neighbor. And then she was like, "Oh no, hang on, you're bleeding, let me help you." I'm like, "Hang on, what? You've just beaten me repeatedly with a 5-pound. You've just beaten me repeatedly with a 5-pound hammer. You're not helping me. Get away from me." I tried to video call her brothers. I eventually video called my one business partner. I couldn't get hold of Alex. Got onto with his wife. And that's kind of that photograph that I posted was literally just a screenshot that she took of the video call that we were on. And she was saying to me, "Look, just get in your car and leave."
Your house.
When I got into my car to leave my house, now obviously the ex-girlfriend then grabbed my car keys so that I can't actually drive my car and leave.
But she just said to you, "You must leave." Now, or the other women said to you, "You must leave," but you can't because of this crazy women. Doesn't it?
So Nadia, my friend's wife, said to me, "Look, just get out of there, leave." And the I don't know, the perpetrator, that's the word. She was then preventing me from leaving because I'm in no state to drive. And well, yes, I am in no state to drive because you put me in that state. So there's no way, Anyway, so made my way out to the estate gate eventually. And the neighbors arrived, took me to the gate. My business partner came and took me to hospital. And that was kind of then, the start of a 19-month journey to try and make our way through the legal system and charges of assault and malicious damage to property.
Yeah, thank you for telling us that story, because I just quickly want to talk about that. But before we go on to how amazing the police was and everything, and this is also something we spoke about in March, okay? Because I was immediately guilty of asking the wrong question, because you also mentioned in your Facebook post how people, no, but I mean, and I admit it, because we need to be educated, so I totally, I stand my man for it. Because we need to be educated, just like I feel I have to educate people about asking me, "But why are you only coming out with it now?" Or whatever the reasons is. So constantly I have to educate people and tell them, "Listen, you don't ask this because blah, 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 blah." But about your story now. So what are the questions people are asking that you can, in this video, maybe educate people? So listen, this and this, don't ask it for these and these reasons. Because I think you said something in your post about people asking immediately, "What did you do wrong?"
Yeah.
Omdat jy man is. Want hulle vra net vir 'n vrou nie. Niemand het vir my gevra in 1992. So wat het jy verkeerd gedoen? Hoekom het jy verkragt geword nie? Verstaan jy? Niemand het daai vraag vir my gevra nie. Maar because you're a man, immediately people assume, "What did you do wrong?"
Yeah. And the problem with asking that question is that it's almost a way of justifying violence. And it's kind of a way of filtering it and saying, well, you know what? Okay, so if you had cheated on her, for argument's sake, that's worth getting beaten up for. Well, no, it isn't. So nothing that you can actually do so should be reason enough for someone to become violent towards you.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a weapon or anything. But what is actually very distressing is the reasons people accept in order to justify gender violence or domestic violence. And you know what, literally 6 weeks before this attack on me, one of my clients asked me to do a 1-hour keynote presentation on the behavioral economics principles underpinning gender-based violence. Because at the time, it was very topical in the news. There were a couple of very high-profile cases. And I came across a study by the World Health Organization. I think that was done about a year or two before. And one of the things it looked at was when men and when women accept it to be okay to engage in gender violence. And it's shocking, but also fascinating at the same time. And what's fascinating about it is the correlation between what men think and what women accept. So one of the things they've got is that they looked at was if a man and a woman argue with each other. So 7.7% of men believe that it is acceptable to be violent towards your wife or girlfriend if she argues with you. But 6.8% of women believe that it's acceptable to have been acted violently on if they argue with them. So there's a strong correlation between, men and women. Something really silly, but 1.3% of both men and women believe that violence is okay if she burns dinner, if she burns the food. And, if we're looking, another one, neglecting the children, 7.6% of men and 6.5% of women. That's not even a percentage point that separates the acceptance of that. Goes out without telling him. 6% of men, 5.2% of women. If your partner refuses to have sex with you, 2.6% of women believe that it's okay for them to then get beaten. 3.1% of men believe that it's okay to engage in violent behavior. And, if we're going to be looking at ways to drop these numbers, to change gender violence in this country, we've got to look at the causality first and not just simply the correlation. Because as long as men and women believe that certain things are okay to sort out with violent behavior, it will continue to be accepted.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I like those figures, and I love the examples, because we all, I can't generalize, it's not a good thing to do that, but I actually want to go there and say most people are guilty of this. We fight with our partner because they burn the food, and maybe we just sort of slap them on the shoulder, or even, and I think sometimes it starts even from a small age with our children. If they do something wrong, you maybe, jy slaan hulle dalk harder as wat jy vir iets anders sou slaan. So ek love daai study wat jy gedoen het, en ek hou van die voorbeelde wat jy gebruik, want dit is so waar, and I don't think we realize it when we do it, and that's why we think it's okay. If my husband, he doesn't, but let's say he did slap me, but through my face because of the dogs that's running outside, and they were supposed to be inside, and I just say, oh, sorry honey, it won't happen again. Easily I will let that go, okay? And next time, dan slaan hulle my weer vir 'n ander rede. And eventually you just accept it. En soos jy gesê het tereglik in jou Facebook post, no violence is good.
Yeah.
That's,
and so
it's as easy as that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so people have also asked, and in court I was asked as well, so you're 6 foot, you're 80, almost 90 kilograms, you're fit, you're an adventurer, you're strong. Why didn't you get out of the situation? Well, when the attack started, I didn't perceive it to be that dangerous. In court, I was told that I could have been killed. A whole bunch of people who've heard the story said to me, Erik, you could be sitting here dead. And I must be honest, that hasn't actually occurred to me yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why. And I don't know if that's because I embrace risk through the job that I do, or what the story is. But, it hasn't occurred to me yet that I could have been killed. And so the second question that I also got was, why didn't you defend yourself? Well, I've got the training, I've got the skills to be able to defend myself. But that was kind of just front of my mind all the time, is don't react to this. Don't disarm, or don't try and disarm her, because she would have been, and she would have ended up on the ground. She would have had a broken arm from being disarmed. And I can tell you now, she would have gotten straight up, gone to the police station, and I would have been on the other side of the story.
Yes,
and so the kind of restraint from me that it took, you know, to actually not meet violence with violence, I think was pretty, you know, high up the charts.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't actually retaliate because, and this is the other side of it, the fact that people don't see gender-based violence as going both ways. It's more accepted that gender violence is men against perpetrating it against women, but not the other way around.
Yeah.
And even when, you know, I got to the hospital and now requiring 13 stitches to my head, the doctor says to me, "Geez, dude, what happened to you?" I said, "Well, my girlfriend hit me with a hammer." He goes, "No, really, come on, what seriously happened?" That was what really happened. And, you know, almost everybody that asked, "How did you get that wound? What happened?" And when I told them, they were like, "No, come on, don't be silly. Tell us the truth." Including initially going to the police. And which I must be honest also, didn't start out very smooth sailing. I live just outside Joburg, behind Lanseria. My first stop was Douglasdale Police Station. They said, well, they can't deal with it. Then they said I should go to Diepsloot. So I go to Diepsloot Police Station. By now it's the Saturday morning, the following morning. They said to me, well, that's not their jurisdiction either. Try Erasmia. And like third stop, yes, you're at the right place. We can help you. Now, you know, for anybody who might be in a more serious or a more threatening situation, surely any police station should be able to help them. You know, so that was kind of the first hurdle. But after that, I mean, the police were absolutely brilliant in terms of investigating the case, in terms of taking it to court. You know, it went on for 18 months in court, certainly not because of the state legal system or processes or anything, but simply because she didn't take this seriously and missed, I don't know how many court appearances, and then didn't have an attorney, and then pleaded poverty that she couldn't afford an attorney. Then 2 legal aid attorneys that the court appointed to her withdrew, refused to work with her. And, you know, it also got to the point where she was just trying all these delaying tactics, thinking that, you know, maybe I'll just drop the charges, or maybe I'll walk away from it. And I think, you know, the third last court date, with another postponement, she actually got in my face outside the court again and said, "Do you really want me to throw your entire life out into the court?" And I said to her, you know, and she was threatening me, like trying to threaten my reputation.
Like blackmail, actually.
Yes, and I said to her, well, you know, oddly, I'm not on trial, right? You are. And when it did go to trial eventually, and she was, you know, sort of be representing herself, she had me under cross-examination for probably around 90 minutes. And it honestly just became a 90-minute character assassination, where eventually the magistrate, you know, by now I think just about everyone was falling asleep. I'd become completely bored because, you know, she's supposed to ask me questions, but it became like a 5-minute statement of being read with a question at the end, all just trying to read nonsense and stuff into the court record. But eventually, you know, the magistrate cut her off, and yeah, you know, so her entire case hinged on trying to tell everyone what a bad person I might be, and not actually refuting the claims against her or the case against her. You know, the magistrate, the prosecutor said to her, you know, so how did the hammer get? Oh, she denied hitting me with a hammer. She says this, I sustained the injury because the hammer fell out of her head, out of her hand, and I ducked my head in underneath it.
Nee, maar staan nie, daar staan waar ek slaan het nie.
Yeah, and you know, then the prosecutor said to her, So then how did the hammer get to the bedroom? Oh, no, she doesn't know.
So it sounds to me that she was trying to, because she's a woman, firstly, and then secondly, she tried to become the victim, you know?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm actually the victim. It happened to me, really. And because of that, I just reacted. It sounds to me like that, you know? But I'm so glad to hear that you had it, that it started tough, but it went out quite smoothly. Because you know what, I think there's a big lesson in this whole thing, and this is why I wanted to have this interview with you, because women must stop thinking they can just do what they want to do. I've actually hoe sê mens in Engels, ek het myself onttrek, okay, van en ek wil nie nou sê wie die company is nie, as one of the ambassadors, because it felt to me that this non-profit company, like I said, I don't want to say who that, but it felt to me they hate men. And they want to make men look bad all the time. And I just said, sorry, I don't want to be a part of this, because this is not the way it works. Women are also guilty. Verstaan jy? I mean, that is nonsense. So for me, there's a big lesson in this whole thing. And I really hope a lot of women are going to watch this so they can start knowing that you can't just get away with this. This is nonsense. Because a lot of times the woman aggravates the guy. And then, yes, eventually you will maybe get a bit like pushy, you know? But you've also pushed him. It doesn't give him reason to hit you. I mean, actually, fair that me. But just stop. Don't even go there. Try to not even go there.
No, absolutely. And, you know, it's this whole idea of portraying a victim or feeling like a victim, or thinking that if I pretend to be the victim, somehow my reality becomes different.
Yeah.
You know, after she hit me and I went to the neighbors to look for help, when I got back, and I actually have the video clip, she sent it to me, she had taken my blood off the bed, smeared it all over her face, and recorded a selfie saying, oh, geez, look what Erik's done to me. He's violent. And when she was arrested, or when she reported to the police station for her arrest, she then laid a counter charge against me as well, saying, no, but he was violent towards me first, which the state declined to prosecute.
Ja, nee, ek moet sê, dit klink 'n bietjie vindictive vir my. Dit is bietjie bad. Yeah.
It got to the point where, you know, she'd caused close on 50,000 rands of damage to my property, hard drives. I've lost, you know, as an ex-professional photographer, I've lost every photograph I've ever taken. The drive is unrecoverable. And so in kind of chatting with her afterwards, immediately, you know, in the days after the attack, I said, look, you know, she said, well, don't I want to drop the charges? And I said, well, you know, if you would consider paying me the damage that you've caused, I might consider dropping the charges. In court, she turned around, her and her brother, as who was there as a witness, saying, I'm trying to extort money out of the family by saying, well, if you pay me, I'll drop the charges. She went as far as trying to tell the court that because I'm a behavioral strategist, I had been setting her up and manipulating her and planning this whole thing for 18 months, which was about the length of our relationship.
Yes, ek het nie woorde nie. Die woorde wil nie kom nie.
Look, I think she watches far too much TV, but
Skus ek lag, maar
it literally got to that point where it was, you know, eventually I started to kind of doubt myself in that, you know, surely it's not possible to, you know, manipulate people like that and that sort of thing. And then, of course, you know, also this whole idea of kind of reliving this, and, you know, sort of kind of reliving this trauma 3-4 times. You know, the first time when it actually happened, the second time when you're recounting it in your statement to the police, the third time when you're in court, telling the court the story, and, you know, with the prosecutor who's my ally, and then again, you know, defending that under cross-examination. So it's kind of, you know, reliving it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's the secret, if that even is there, is to just try and look at this with not so much a resilience mindset, but an endurance mindset, because it's going to continue for a long time. But you've got to take the first step. You've got to endure in order for it to end. You know, I know ladies who have been in abusive relationships for years, right? One lady friend of mine, 30 years.
Sure.
And only now starting to kind of make, you know, taking the steps to get out of it. She says largely inspired by what I've been through. You know, even the night after my attacks, that was Friday night. And then I said to her the Saturday, you need to get your stuff and get out of my house, because I didn't stay there Friday night. I mean, I'm honestly like fearing for my life because, so I said, you need to be out of there by Saturday night. Yeah, but you can't take all this stuff. I said, I don't care. You can come back in the week and take other stuff. You're not sleeping there. I get back to my house on Saturday evening. She's there with her brother and the police. I said, well, have you taken your stuff? No. And then her brother says to me, takes me aside, can't you guys talk about this and work it out? I'm like, dude, she hit me with a hammer. What is there to work out?
Ja, want as dit eers so begin en jy laat dit nou slide, dan gaan jy een van daai vrouens wees, weet, en ek noem dit nou vrouens wat baie, of kom ons sê mense wees wat dan choose to be in a relationship like that. Because how do you recover also from that? You weet, it's not a good starting point, especially in an only 18 months relationship. And you know what's sad for me about any abuse, especially in marriages and relationships, now you love that person, you spend good time with him, you've got great memories, and then it's so sad when it ends like that, because unfortunately you will only remember that now of that person, and that's sad to me, you know. Now this is the bad thing, and this is, perpetrators don't realize the after effects of the actions. You know, if I'm talking about rape survivors or, you know, gender-based violence survivors, that trauma is with you for the rest of your life. Yes, you're a big man, you're strong and everything, and I'm sure you don't cry yourself to sleep every night, but it's something that's going to stick with you. Die letsel is daar. Verstaan jy, if you walk into a next relationship and there's just something that triggers you, Erik, jy gaan onmiddellik reitereer en sê, weet jy wat, I've been here, I've seen this, and you maybe not going to give somebody a chance, purely because of that one thing that makes you scared, want jy weet hoe dit kan uitdraai. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. You know, so my first question now in any new relationship is, do you have a hammer? No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Nee, ek hoor jy, dis 'n goeie een.
But no, I mean, it creates a lot of doubt.
Yeah,
and
presies dit.
If you're,
and self-doubt as well.
Yeah. And you know, so it's definitely the self-doubt in that, you know, gosh, what if I inadvertently say something, do something that gets my new relationship partner to feel the way the other one did? She hit me with a hammer. What's this one going to do?
Yeah.
And, you know, while we all understand that that's not the norm, it just continues to create a level of doubt.
No, absolutely. Luister, ons het nou lekker gelag hieroor, but it is actually a very serious topic, you know, and like I said, I really want men and women to take something from this, because we need to think twice before we just do something or react something. And if I look at the news and things, you know, of people who jump from buildings and commit suicide, and then they want to blame the partner, you know, but I heard afterwards about this couple. It's been a toxic relationship like for many years, and the parents knew it. Yes, you know, the parents probably couldn't stop this couple I'm referring to, but if you know you're in a toxic relationship, try to change it or try to leave it as soon as possible, because otherwise it unfortunately can end it. Because I'm sure if you know, after every breakup, I mean, I'm in my second marriage, it's like your life plays like a little movie. Then you think, oh, but I did see that, and I did see that, but I ignored it. You know, I ignored it. And then, you know, we need to focus on those little slideshows, as ek het so kan sê, because it's there. But we ignore them.
And And for a lot of people, you know, yes, I saw the red flags, but I thought it was a carnival. But I want to add to that, Leilani, and that don't think of, so accept the fact that gender-based violence, domestic violence works both ways. It's not just women, men on women.
Absolutely.
And secondly, accept the fact and be vigilant of the fact that it's not always physical. It's very often emotional. And, you know, what is it that both men and women do to each other that's kind of emotional blackmail?
Yeah.
You know, and I've kind of experienced that as well. And, you know, one of the things that I quoted those stats earlier is refusing to have sex, right? That is a form of relationship abuse and emotional abuse. And there are many other ones as well, withholding money or that sort of thing. And be very cognizant of the emotional triggers way before you start worrying about the physical abuse or physical violence.
Yeah, I must say that's very great advice. Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to end off this lovely interview with a question I've been dying to ask you. Okay? Kleer jy jou mooi grys haar jouself? Want ek dink daar's vrouens wat sal enigiets gee, né, om jou kleur hare te hê. So is dit natural of kleer jy dit?
Nee, dit all natural.
All natural.
All natural. I mean, I actually remember in my 20s finishing up studies and lecturing at university, and the receptionist at our department called me one day as I was walking out. She said, "Erik, come here." I said, "What?" She says, "Where do you do your hair?" I said, "I just go to the barber down the corner." She says, "No, man, the color." I'm like, "No." It's completely natural.
Nee, ek is bly ek weet dit nou, want ek het gedink dis natural, maar ek moes net daai vraag vra. Maar hoorie, dit is 'n baie lekker onderhoud. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really think, like I'm repeating myself, but I feel very passionate about this. There's really a message here, guys. Please listen to this. Take it serious. Go and see somebody, you know, especially if you both are. Because I think sometimes both of two people in a relationship are actually guilty. So if you see the signs, go and get help, you know, read about it or do a course or something like that, you know, because better yourself, especially if you maybe are an abuser. So yeah, thank you so much, Erik, for your time. It was baie lekker om
It's a great pleasure, Leilani. Lovely chatting.
You too.
Dat is 'n lekker dag verder.
Bye.